The ballroom glittered like a galaxy of gold and diamonds, each guest a star in orbit around the man at the center, Adrian Sterling, the billionaire everyone admired and feared. His reputation was sculpted from headlines and whispers, ruthless in business, untouchable in heart. But that night, beneath the chandeliers of the Sterling Foundation Gala, his wife's trembling voice shattered the illusion. "I can't do this anymore," Elena said into the microphone, her words cutting through laughter and music like a blade through silk. "I'm tired of this marriage." A collective gasp swept the crowd. Cameras flashed. Glasses paused halfway to lips. Even the orchestra faltered mid-note, the violin bow trembling in the player's hand. For a breath, the world seemed to tilt toward her. The billionaire's wife, standing in a silver gown that shimmered like frost, her mascara streaked from tears she hadn't meant to show in public. Adrian didn't move. He simply stared, eyes glacial, the faintest pulse beating in his jaw. Every expression on his face was trained to calm, but his right hand tightened slightly on his glass, just once. Those close enough saw it, the world watching online would not. "Elena," he said quietly, his voice carrying the low command of a man who'd never been refused anything. "This isn't the place." "Is there a right place to stop pretending?" she asked, and for a second her voice cracked. "You've built a world around silence. I can't breathe in it anymore." Reporters' phones were already out, the room's temperature shifting from shock to hunger. Adrian turned toward the audience, gave a curt nod, then looked back at her. "Then you should know the truth before you go." The sentence hung there, cold and dangerous, like a secret that had waited years to escape. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elena blinked, confused. "Truth? What truth?" But Adrian simply placed his glass down, nodded once to his assistant, and motioned to the exit. His composure was terrifying. The cameras followed them as they left the stage together, the billionaire and his wife walking side by side into the corridor's shadows, her heels clicking like distant gunfire. Inside the limo, silence swallowed them whole. The city's lights streaked across the tinted windows, fractured and blurred. Adrian's reflection flickered beside hers, pale, unreadable. Elena's hands trembled in her lap. She hadn't planned to say those words tonight. They'd clawed their way out of her chest like something long buried. When the driver took an unexpected turn, she glanced up. "Adrian, where are we going?" He didn't look at her. "Home," he said. "Just not ours." The chill in his voice made her throat tighten. She turned to the window, and in the reflection she saw the dark SUV following them, headlights steady, deliberate. Her stomach dropped. "Who's following us?" Adrian's gaze remained fixed ahead. "Someone who's been waiting for you to walk away." And as the city faded behind them, the silence inside the car became unbearable, a silence full of questions she wasn't ready to ask. Rain began to fall against the windshield, tracing thin silver veins down the glass as the city lights disappeared behind them. The car rolled deeper into the hills, the hum of the engine steady, almost hypnotic. Elena's heart pounded quietly in her chest. Every few seconds she glanced at Adrian, searching for any sign of what was happening, but his profile was unreadable, sculpted from stone and restraint. She had been married to him for 3 years. She knew the silence between them well. It was the kind that filled rooms, swallowed laughter, and lingered in hallways after fights that never really happened. But tonight's silence was different. It was heavier, calculated. "Adrian, where are we really going?" she asked again. Her voice was soft but trembling. He didn't turn. "You'll see soon enough." Her pulse stuttered. He had said those exact words once before, the night he proposed. A memory flashed uninvited. A rooftop, champagne, the city glittering below. He'd taken her hand and whispered the same promise, "You'll see soon enough," before sliding a diamond onto her finger. Back then it had sounded like forever. Now it felt like a threat. Outside, the rain turned heavier, the road narrowing into a forest path lined with pine and mist. The driver slowed. Elena could barely see beyond the headlights. When the car finally stopped, she saw it, a vast, secluded mansion hidden behind iron gates, cameras swiveling quietly on their mounts. The house was older than their penthouse in the city, darker, almost gothic, its windows glowing faintly like tired eyes. She frowned. "I didn't know you owned another house." Adrian's lips twitched, almost a smile. "There are many things you don't know." The gate opened automatically. The car drove in, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Security lights flared, scanning them with white beams before going still again. The SUV that had followed them parked just inside the gate. Elena turned to look. 2 men in suits stepped out, one of them pressing a finger to his earpiece. She shivered. Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and something metallic. The walls were lined with old portraits, their faces turned toward her as she passed. Adrian led the way through dim corridors until they reached a steel door at the end of the hall. It didn't belong in a house. It belonged in a fortress. He pressed his thumb to a scanner. The lock hissed open. Inside was a windowless room lit by rows of screens and a long table covered in papers. Photographs. Surveillance footage. Elena froze. Her own face stared back from half the photos. Her at the cafe near their apartment, her walking the dog, her shopping, her visiting her sister. Dozens of angles. Hundreds of days. Her throat closed. "You've been following me?" Adrian turned slowly, meeting her eyes for the first time that night. "No," he said quietly. "I've been protecting you." Something inside her twisted. "Protecting me from what?" He walked to the desk, touched one of the screens. It flickered, showing grainy footage. Elena at a crosswalk. Behind her, a man in a black cap, head lowered, always just a few steps away. Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. "From him." Elena's stomach dropped. The image zoomed in. The man's face was shadowed, but something in his posture, the slight tilt of the head, the way he watched her, stirred a cold recognition she couldn't name. She turned to Adrian. "Who is he?" He looked at her for a long time, the kind of look that carried the weight of years. "Someone I should have killed a long time ago." "You've come this far, please subscribe, like and share to your friends." The room hummed faintly from the servers along the wall, a mechanical heartbeat in the dark. Elena's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. The man in the footage turned slightly, his cap tipping back just enough to reveal the edge of a scar along his jaw. Her breath hitched. "I've seen him before," she whispered. "Years ago. At the train station." He tried to. She stopped herself, shaking her head as if refusing to let the memory breathe. "I thought it was a coincidence." "It wasn't," Adrian said. "His name is Marcus Vance. You knew him once, long before me." The name landed like a blow. The echo of it rippled through her. Marcus. She hadn't spoken that name in 7 years. Adrian dimmed the screens and leaned against the table, his hands gripping the edge. "Before we met, you filed a report, a man who followed you after your father's funeral. The police never caught him. He disappeared for 2 years. Elena stepped back, pressing a hand against her chest. "How do you know all this?" "I made sure to find him," Adrian said. "And to make him disappear." The flashback came sharp and uninvited, rain-soaked pavement, the sound of footsteps too close behind her, her keys slipping from her hand. Marcus had been charming once, a co-worker at her father's firm. After her father's death, he'd appeared at her apartment with flowers, sympathy, and questions that didn't sound like grief. When she stopped answering, the gifts turned into letters, then photographs, once taken through her windows at night. She'd changed her number, moved apartments. But his shadow followed her like smoke. And then one day he was gone. No calls, no notes, no sightings. She had convinced herself it was over. She'd met Adrian a year later, tall, steady, his calm a relief after years of fear. She had never connected the two. Until now. Her voice cracked. "What did you do to him?" Adrian's eyes lifted to hers. "I paid him to stay away." The words hit harder than she expected. "You paid him?" He nodded once. "There are things you don't understand, Elena. He didn't want money at first. He wanted information, about your father. About the company. When he realized I had more power than he'd ever get, he took the deal." Elena's stomach twisted. "You've been lying to me since the beginning. I've been keeping you alive." He walked toward her, and the air felt smaller with every step. "He's been watching again for months. I didn't tell you because I knew what it would do. You'd think I was controlling you again." Her eyes burned. "You are controlling me." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Maybe. But the moment you said you wanted to leave, he came back. You don't see the pattern, but I do. He's never wanted your love. He wants your past." Elena turned away, trembling. Her reflection on the black monitor looked like a stranger's face, pale, hollow, caught between fear and fury. "Adrian," she said finally, her voice barely a whisper, "what if he's not the one coming for me this time?" Adrian froze, and for the first time that night, uncertainty flickered across his face. Then the lights flickered. One screen glitched, showing static, then a new image, a live feed from the front gate. The man in the black cap was standing there, staring directly into the camera. The image on the monitor froze for a second, then zoomed in. Rain beaded on the lens. The man in the black cap lifted his head just enough for the camera to catch his eyes, calm, certain, waiting. A streak of lightning flared behind him, whitening the screen, and when it faded, he was gone. Elena stumbled backward. He knows where we are. Adrian was already moving. He barked an order into a small radio clip to his belt, his voice low, precise, military. Somewhere in the distance, steel gates locked with a thunderous clang. Guards flooded the grounds. Elena stared at the screen. The feed switched to thermal. The man's heat signature was vanishing into the trees. She turned on Adrian. How did he find this place? I don't know. But his tone betrayed him. It was too flat. Too practiced. She stepped closer. You said you made him disappear. You said. I said I paid him to stay away, Adrian cut in. His jaw clenched. That doesn't mean I trusted him to keep his word. Her voice sharpened. You're hiding something. For the first time he looked tired, almost human. If you knew the full story you'd never forgive me. Then tell me anyway. He hesitated. Then he crossed to a locked drawer, pulled out a weather-stained folder and laid it on the table. A photograph slid free, a burnt-out car on a coastal road, flames curling into the dusk. The image was old but mercilessly clear. Elena frowned. What is this? Adrian's eyes dropped to the photo. Her name was Lila Caro. My fiancée. Elena's breath caught. She'd seen that name once years ago, buried in a news article about an industrial accident involving Sterling Innovations. She had never asked. Adrian's voice thinned to a whisper. The explosion was meant for me. Marcus built the device. He'd been fired from one of my research divisions for theft. I ignored the threats he sent. The day Lila died, I was supposed to be driving that car. He looked at Elena, eyes glassy with guilt. Since then, I don't ignore threats. Elena shook her head, backing away. So that's it? You track every woman you love because one man hurt you once. He slammed a hand on the table, the sound echoing off metal. Because the next time he came for someone I loved, it was you. Lightning cracked again outside, lighting his face in stark relief, haunted, unshaven, desperate. Elena swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Because you'd see a monster, he said. Not a man trying to make sure history doesn't repeat itself. Her chest ached with a confusion she couldn't name. Fear, pity, something dangerously like understanding. Then a guard's voice buzzed through the intercom. Sir, North Wing cameras down. Motion detected inside perimeter. Adrian turned toward the door. He's not gone, he said. He's inside. Elena's hand trembled on the edge of the desk. The monitors flickered again, one by one, until only a single feed remained, the hallway outside the very room they were in. A dark figure was walking toward the door. Please subscribe to get notified whenever new video are dropped. The steel door shuttered once under a heavy blow. A muffled voice barked orders, Adrian's guards shouting, footsteps racing down the corridor. The hum of the servers turned into a background pulse beneath the chaos. Elena pressed herself against the wall, heartbeat roaring in her ears. Adrian drew a handgun from the small of his back, motioned for silence and killed the overhead lights. Only the monitors glowed now, cold and blue. Another crash. The knob twisted, metal screeching. Adrian's voice was barely a whisper. Stay behind me. But the door didn't break. The noises moved away, swallowed by distance. He waited, counted silently to 10, then 20. When he switched the lights back on, the hallway feed showed only his guards dragging an unconscious man toward the gate. The figure's cap had fallen off, one of Adrian's own security officers. Elena's voice trembled. He's inside your team. Adrian holstered the gun slowly. I know. You know? He sank into a chair, the weariness finally cracking through his control. You think money builds walls. It doesn't. It just buys silence. Everyone can be bought eventually. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Including Marcus? He didn't look up. Especially Marcus. The silence between them deepened until she broke it. Tell me the rest, Adrian. Tell me why a man who murdered your fiancée is still breathing. His eyes lifted, sharp again. Because killing him would have destroyed more than it saved. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped like a confession. After Lila died, I wanted revenge. But Marcus found me first. He sent me footage of something else, your father wiring company money offshore. Proof of fraud that could have ruined him and you. He wanted a trade, his freedom for the silence of your father's crimes. Elena's pulse stuttered. My father? Adrian nodded. If I turned Marcus in, every paper would have printed your name beside his. You'd lose everything. I'd already lost one woman to him, I wasn't going to lose another. So you paid him off, she said flatly. I made a deal, he corrected. Money, new identity, relocation. He vanished. For a while it worked. Elena could barely breathe. And you thought I'd never find out. I prayed you wouldn't, Adrian said. But praying doesn't suit men like me. We make arrangements instead. He opened another file, recent bank transfers, coded names. Every month, a quiet payment. Elena felt sick. You've been feeding him for years. Adrian's gaze hardened. To keep him from feeding on you. For a moment neither spoke. Rain hammered the windows, thunder shaking the glass. Then one of the monitors blinked, an encrypted message appearing across the feed, its letters jagged and red. Check the date of the fire. Adrian froze. Elena leaned closer. What does that mean? He stared at the words until they vanished, replaced by static. His face went pale. It means, he whispered, the story I told you isn't the only lie between us. Elena's pulse thudded loud enough to fill the silence. Adrian, she said carefully, what does it mean, check the date of the fire? He didn't answer. He was staring past her, the muscles in his jaw tightening. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded thinner, scraped raw. That message isn't for you. It's for me. Her anger flared. Stop talking in riddles. Tell me what you've done. He opened the folder again, fingers trembling slightly for the first time. The photo of the burned car stared up at them both. Lila died 8 years ago on the 23rd of June, he said. At least that's what I've told everyone, including myself. Elena's heart stumbled. You told yourself? He looked at her then, eyes hollow. Because I never saw the body. The air in the room thinned. Thunder rolled outside, a low animal growl. Adrian leaned back, rubbing his temples. When the explosion happened, the car was unrecognizable. The authorities ruled it an accident caused by faulty wiring. I accepted it. I even paid to have the report sealed. But 3 years later, Marcus sent me a picture. Lila alive, walking into a clinic in Prague under another name. Elena's breath hitched. You think he faked her death? I think I helped him, Adrian said. Without knowing. He opened a new file on the screen. Transfer logs dated the day before the explosion. That was the first payment Marcus ever received from me. I thought it was for prototype data, he'd blackmailed me, threatened to leak it. But it was blood money. He used it to vanish with her. Elena shook her head slowly, trying to make sense of it. So all these years you've been protecting me from a man you were still funding? Adrian's smile was bitter. Protecting you or atoning for something else, I can't tell anymore. The weight of his confession pressed against her chest. Every moment of coldness, every unexplained trip, every distant stare, it all rewove itself into something more frighteningly human. Guilt. Obsession. Fear. She whispered, Did you love her that much? Adrian's eyes lifted to hers. I don't know if I loved her, or if I just couldn't live with what I'd done. A flicker passed across one of the monitors. A new video feed appeared, grainy, time-stamped. It showed a woman in a hospital corridor, walking slowly with a limp. The camera panned, catching her face. Elena gasped. It was Lila. Older, thinner, but unmistakably alive. The video ended abruptly, replaced by the same red text. You think she's the one who died? Check your records. Elena turned to Adrian, voice shaking. He's playing with you. With us. Adrian shut off the monitors. No, he said quietly. He's reminding me what I already suspected. She frowned. Which is? He met her gaze, every word dragging like a stone across his throat. That Marcus didn't fake one death that night. He faked two. Before she could speak, the lights went out, every bulb in the mansion dying at once. The darkness pressed in absolute. Somewhere below them, a door creaked open. The lights blinked out so completely that the room seemed to vanish around her. For a moment there was only the metallic hum of the servers winding down and the faint patter of rain against glass. Elena fumbled for her phone, thumb shaking as she switched on the flashlight. Its narrow beam cut a thin tunnel through the dark, catching the edge of the table, a scatter of papers, Adrian's abandoned folder. Adrian? She whispered. No answer. Somewhere in the hallway a door clicked shut. She heard footsteps, soft, deliberate, and then silence again. Her chest constricted. She turned the light toward the corner where he'd been standing, but he was gone. The radio he'd been using lay on the floor, its casing cracked, the speaker hissing static. Elena picked it up. Adrian, where are you? Only static. Then, faintly, a man's voice, not Adrian's, slid through the interference. He's not who you think he is. She dropped the radio, backing away until her shoulder hit the file cabinet. The drawers rattled. Something metallic clanged inside. The top drawer was locked, but one of the keys Adrian had left on the table fit the slot. She turned it. The drawer slid open with a soft sigh of air. Inside were files labeled in his meticulous handwriting. Asset control. Operations. Financial settlements. At the very bottom, a plain black folder. No label, just a red sticker marked E. Elena's pulse thudded as she opened it. Inside were bank statements. Regular payments, large sums routed through shell corporations. The recipient's alias was a name she recognized, Samuel Hale. Her stomach dropped. That had been her father's pseudonym, the one he'd used for offshore accounts before his death. She flipped further. There were messages, emails between Adrian and someone using her father's old encrypted address, dated after the day he supposedly died. Her breath came shallow. No, she whispered. He couldn't be alive. Behind her, a faint creak. She swung the flashlight toward the sound. The beam caught the edge of a portrait, the oil painting of her father that had hung in his office before the scandal. But there, beneath the paint, she saw something new, tiny fractures in the canvas as if something had been hidden behind it. She reached up and pried it loose. Behind the frame was a small compartment containing a flash drive taped to the backboard. Across the tape in her father's handwriting were the words, "If she ever learns the truth, tell her I'm sorry." Her knees nearly gave way. The flashlight trembled in her hand. The door burst open. Adrian stood in the doorway, half lit by the hall's emergency lights. His shirt was wet, his face streaked with rain and sweat. "Elena, step away from that." She turned the beam on him. "How long have you known my father's alive?" He froze. "You weren't supposed to find that." "You paid my father, didn't you?" she demanded. "All those transfers, you've been funding him the same way you funded Marcus." Adrian's expression crumbled, and for a moment she saw the man beneath the armor. "I thought he was trying to protect you," he said softly. "But I was wrong. They both were." Thunder cracked overhead, shaking dust from the rafters. Elena clutched the folder to her chest, realizing the room around her, every hidden camera, every locked drawer, wasn't just a fortress. It was a confession built in steel and wire. Adrian stepped closer. "Listen to me. What you found, none of it is what it seems." She backed away, eyes wide. "Then show me what it really is." He hesitated, then whispered, "To do that, you'll have to see where your father's money went." Adrian crossed the room and picked up the fallen radio, twisting the dial until the static flattened into silence. Only the rain remained, drumming on the roof like a steady heartbeat. "You want to know where the money went?" he said quietly. "Then watch." He slid the flash drive into a laptop on the desk. The screen came alive with lines of code, then a directory of files marked with years, 2012, 2013, 2014. He opened one labeled Sterling Holdings, Private Transfers. Rows of numbers filled the screen. Elena stared at them. "These are your accounts." "They were," Adrian said. "Until your father took them." The words hit like a slap. "My father built your first company," she said, voice rising. "He saved you from bankruptcy." Adrian gave a short, humorless laugh. "He saved me by laundering investor money through it. He made me his shield, Elena. When the auditors came for him, I took the blame to keep your name clear." Her mind reeled. "No, you were accused because you were guilty. I read the reports." He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen, an old video flickered, security footage from a conference room. Her father sat across from Adrian, a glass of whiskey in hand, his voice low and urgent. "If the board learns the funds are gone, we both burn. I'll fix it. Just keep your mouth shut." Elena's stomach twisted. "That can't be real." "I wish it wasn't," Adrian murmured. "He wired millions into offshore accounts using my company as a shell. When the scandal broke, I confessed. He begged me to, said you'd never survive the shame. And then he staged his suicide." The words drained the blood from her face. "He's been alive all this time, watching me grieve. He told Marcus everything," Adrian said. "About the money, about me, about you. Marcus saw an opportunity, blackmail both sides. When your father realized what Marcus had done, he ran deeper underground. I kept paying to keep Marcus quiet. That's the chain you found." Elena's eyes burned. "So every time you claimed to protect me, you were protecting your own lie." "I was protecting the last piece of you that still believed in him," Adrian said. His voice broke a little on the last word. For a moment the thunder faded, and she saw not the billionaire but the man beneath, The one who'd carried her through her father's funeral, who'd sat beside her in hospital rooms, silent but constant. Everything she'd thought was loyalty might have been guilt. "You could have told me," she whispered. "I wanted to," he said. "But every truth I tell you kills another part of what we had left." Before she could answer, the laptop pinged, a live feed opening by itself. A shadowed figure appeared on the screen, half-lit, older but unmistakable. Her father. He looked directly into the camera. "Elena," his recorded voice said, "if you're seeing this, he's told you enough to hate me. But not enough to understand him." The file ended abruptly, replaced by coordinates. Adrian stared at them. "That's where it began," he said. "And where we'll find the rest of the truth." The coordinates pointed north, an abandoned industrial district by the coast, one of the properties Adrian had quietly kept off every ledger. They drove through sheets of rain in silence, headlights slicing the fog, the rhythmic wipers the only sound between them. The closer they got, the rougher the roads became, lined with skeletal warehouses and rusted cranes reaching into the dark sky like broken ribs. Elena hugged her coat tighter. What was this place? Adrian didn't look at her. "It was supposed to be the headquarters for our expansion. Your father's idea. The launch site for a new biotech arm. But it was never built. It was a cover." "For what?" "For hiding the money." They stopped before a chain-link gate half torn from its hinges. Adrian pushed it open and they stepped inside. The air smelled of salt and burnt metal. In the distance, waves crashed against the docks, the tide churning like something restless. Inside the main warehouse, his flashlight swept across abandoned machinery and old computer servers stacked like tombstones. He led her to a steel cabinet bolted to the floor. A biometric lock blinked red until he pressed his thumb against it. The mechanism clicked, releasing with a sigh. Inside were hard drives, stacks of paper files sealed in plastic, and an old security badge with her father's photo. Elena picked up one of the folders. "These are transfer logs." She flipped through them, pages damp from years of neglect. Half of these accounts belonged to government research funds. Adrian nodded grimly. He rerouted them into private bioweapon development. Marcus was the scientist he hired to build the prototypes. She froze. "Bioweapons? My father?" "He told me it was medical research, genetic therapy," Adrian said. "I believed him. Until one of Marcus's test sites caught fire. The same night Lila died. That's why Marcus ran. That's why your father disappeared. And that's why he needed me to stay quiet." Elena's flashlight trembled in her grip. The pieces slid together like jagged glass. Her father's death, Adrian's trial, Marcus's blackmail, it all stemmed from that night. "He used both of you," she whispered. "You to take the fall. Marcus to erase the evidence. And Lila," Adrian said softly. "She wasn't his accomplice. She was his hostage." Elena's breath caught. "Hostage?" He met her eyes. "Your father threatened her life if I didn't keep the secret. Marcus saved her in that fire. That's why he faked both deaths, hers and his own escape." A sudden clang echoed from the upper mezzanine. Both flashlights whipped upward. A figure stood in the shadows, watching them. For a heartbeat, Elena thought it was a trick of light, until the beam caught his face. Older, weathered, but unmistakable. Her father. Elena's voice broke into the hollow air. "Dad." He stepped forward, calm despite the storm, eyes full of something unreadable. "You shouldn't have come here," he said. The way he said it, cold, almost pitying, made her blood run cold. For a moment, Elena couldn't move. The rain had found its way through holes in the roof, dripping in slow, uneven beats that filled the silence between them. Her father stood at the top of the stairs, his gray hair plastered to his forehead, the years written into the deep grooves of his face. But his eyes, sharp, cold, calculating, were exactly as she remembered from the nights he'd tucked her in after a board meeting, still wearing his suit, his mind already elsewhere. "Dad," she said again, softer this time, as if the word itself might break him open. "You're alive." He descended the steps slowly, hands in his coat pockets. "Alive, yes, but not free." His voice carried the same calm authority that once commanded boardrooms. "And you were never supposed to see me again." Adrian stepped forward, tension coiling in his posture. She deserved the truth. Her father's eyes flicked to him, disdain cutting through his tone. "You had one job, keep her away from this. You failed." Elena snapped, voice trembling. "Failed? You faked your death. You made me bury an empty coffin." He sighed as though scolding a child. You were grieving me because that was safer than knowing what I'd done. I needed you to believe it. Believe what? That you ruined Adrian's life? That you stole millions? That you killed people? A muscle jumped in his jaw. You think this was about money? He walked past Adrian and stopped in front of her, close enough for her to see the glint of regret, or madness, in his eyes. It was about you, Elena. You were my weakness. The board knew I'd bend if they threatened you. They wanted control of the research. I did what I had to do to protect you from them. Adrian's voice was low, dangerous. By creating something 10 times worse. Elena turned to him, confusion twisting inside her. What research? Her father's mouth tightened. A cure. At first. That's what Marcus and I were developing. A gene therapy that could rewrite damaged DNA. It worked too well. They wanted to weaponize it. Turn healing into control. So I rerouted the funding, hid the data, destroyed the prototypes. Elena's heart pounded. That fire. I ordered it, he said. To wipe everything. But Marcus disobeyed. He saved the research. And the girl. Lila, Adrian said, almost whispering. Her father's gaze darkened. He loved her. I couldn't risk that attachment. It made him unpredictable. Elena stared at him, tears burning her eyes. You justified everything you did in my name. You lied to me, to him, to the world, just so you could play God. He shook his head, voice low and deliberate. No, I became God's punishment. The world you both live in, the luxury, the security, it's built on blood and lies. I stayed hidden to make sure no one used it again. Adrian's hand tightened around the flashlight. And now Marcus is using it against us. Her father's eyes flicked toward the dark corner of the warehouse. No, he said quietly. Marcus is dead. Lightning split the sky outside, flooding the room in white light. For an instant, Elena saw movement, a second silhouette behind the machinery. Her father turned his head slightly, and in that instant she understood. He wasn't warning them. He was hiding someone. Then who the hell is in here with us? Adrian growled. A metallic clang echoed from the shadows, followed by the faint shuffle of footsteps. Elena swung the flashlight toward the sound. For a heartbeat, the beam caught a glint of pale skin, then disappeared again behind the rusted machinery. Adrian moved first, stepping in front of her. Who's there? His voice cut through the dark like a blade. The answer came slowly, almost wistful. You still ask that after all this time? Elena's pulse skipped. The voice, feminine, steady, familiar in a way that made her chest ache, came from the far side of the warehouse. The beam caught her face as she stepped forward. Thin, tired, but unmistakably Lila. The woman Adrian had mourned, buried, and built his silence around for nearly a decade. Adrian froze. His flashlight wavered slightly, the beam trembling over her features as if his brain couldn't decide whether to trust his eyes. Lila. She smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. Hello, Adrian. Elena's mind raced. This couldn't be real. And yet, every file, every clue, every message had been leading here. Her father exhaled sharply, his expression unreadable. You shouldn't have come back. Lila's gaze flicked to him, sharp and venomous. You made me a ghost. You don't get to tell me when I appear. Adrian finally found his voice. You're alive. Why didn't you tell me? She laughed softly, a brittle sound that broke under its own weight. Tell you? After what you did? After you let him use me as leverage? Adrian stepped forward, the guilt raw in his eyes. I didn't know he'd. She cut him off. Didn't know? You think I didn't hear the deals you made in those dark rooms? You let him own me, Adrian. You signed my life away to buy hers. Elena's throat tightened. What do you mean, hers? Lila turned to her slowly. Your father didn't threaten Adrian with money. He threatened him with you. The words hit like a thunderclap. Elena blinked, her voice barely audible. Me? Your father promised to ruin you, Lila said. He told Adrian that if he didn't take the blame for the fraud, you'd go down for it instead. That you'd be dragged through the scandal as his accomplice. So Adrian stayed quiet and I burned for it. The room seemed to tilt. Adrian didn't deny it. He just closed his eyes, jaw tightening. I tried to find you, he whispered. But every lead led back to Marcus. Lila's expression softened for the briefest second, then hardened again. Marcus was the only one who tried to save me. Until your father killed him. Elena's father's voice rose sharply. He was a threat. He would have exposed everything. Lila turned on him, her voice cracking. He was my husband. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the rain seemed to stop. Elena's breath hitched, her world shattering again. Adrian stared at Lila, eyes wide, speechless. Her father looked away first. "You married him," he said flatly, "and doomed us all." But Lila's gaze never left Adrian. "No," she whispered. "You doomed yourself." Then, as lightning ripped the sky apart outside, Lila lifted a small black device from her coat pocket, armed, blinking red. "This ends tonight," she said. The rain outside had become a roar, slamming against the cracked windows like fists. In its rhythm, the blinking red light on the small device in Lila's hand pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and merciless. Adrian stepped forward slowly, palms raised. "Lila, listen to me. Whatever he did, whatever I did, this isn't you." She gave a small, almost gentle laugh. "You don't know who I am anymore." Elena's father moved sideways, edging toward one of the old consoles. "You think blowing this place up will fix anything?" he snapped. "The research still exists. The truth will still die with you." Lila's eyes flicked to him. "You erased me once. I won't let you do it again." Elena stepped between them before she even realized she'd moved. "Stop it. All of you." Her voice shook, but it carried. "You've all spent years destroying everything to protect someone, and none of it worked. My father lost his soul, Adrian lost himself, and you," she turned to Lila, "you lost your life before it even ended." Lila's fingers trembled on the trigger. For the first time, something cracked through her anger, grief raw and unbearable. "He promised me freedom," she whispered. "Instead he built a prison." Adrian took another step. "Then let me make it right. Hand it over. I'll finish what should have been finished 8 years ago." Her eyes filled. "You can't fix this, Adrian. You already chose your side." "No," he said quietly, "I'm choosing now." In a flash he lunged, grabbing her wrist. The two struggled, the device skittering across the floor, its red light blinking faster. Elena dove for it, her fingers closing around the smooth metal just as it slipped off the edge of the loading platform. Adrian twisted, pushing Lila away as the timer hit the final seconds. "Run," he shouted. But Elena didn't move. She stared at the numbers counting down, 3, 2, 1, and pressed the side panel, ripping out the power cell. The light died. Silence. Lila collapsed to her knees, sobbing. Adrian stood frozen, chest heaving. Elena tossed the powerless device aside, her hands shaking. "No more lies," she said, voice low. "Not one more secret." Her father took a step toward her, something desperate in his eyes. "Elena, you don't understand. I did all of this to protect me," she finished, tears streaking her face. "I know. But you only taught me how to destroy." He faltered. The words seemed to drain the strength from him. He turned away, shoulders hunched, and for the first time looked like an old man, not a mastermind, not a monster, just tired. Lila rose slowly, meeting Adrian's gaze. "He was right about one thing," she said. "We all built this on lies." Then she walked past them, out into the rain. None of them followed. Elena and Adrian stood in the doorway, watching her disappear into the storm. The warehouse smelled of rust, ozone, and endings. Adrian finally spoke, voice almost a whisper. "What do we do now?" Elena looked at him, eyes hollow but steady. "We tell the truth," she said. "Even if it ruins us." Thunder rolled across the coast, and somewhere in that sound was the beginning of something new, something fragile but real. If you've come this far and you like this story, please subscribe, like, and share to your friends. Thank you.